Disappointment. Displeasure caused by the non-fulfillment of one's expectations. I think that captures perfectly the impression that the Soundcraft Ui-12 has left. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, this is only a $300 mixer. What did he expect? Well, that's exactly the problem here. What did I expect? If I'm being honest, I expected more. If I'm being honest, I looked at the UI series from Soundcraft and saw Soundcraft's logo, the DBX logo, the Lexicon logo, the Digitech logo, and I compared it to other offerings on the market of a similar price, mostly the Behringer X-Air series, and I incorrectly assumed that because of the company standing behind the UI series, that it would be a superior product. I assumed that for Soundcraft to put their name on a product, let alone DBX, that it would at very least, be able to power up reliably and do the basic functions when you needed to. I assumed that those companies would hesitate to put their name on a product that, while it's interesting and it's exciting and it's a look to the future, simply isn't reliable. Unfortunately, I was wrong. The concept of browser-based mixing is very interesting at this point, and it offers us new ways to look at how we interact with the audio and how we do our job. The idea of being able to mix from any browser on any device without needing to put software onto each device individually is really smart, and one that I was really hopeful for, but in practice it just doesn't work as well as you would want for what is the only way you have to interact with this mixer. I had this mixer out on 4 jobs, and I did have backups available on each one of those jobs. And while it did get the job done for each one of those different events, it wasn't without issues. As you can see here, I'm setting up a quick time lapse so you can watch the meters over the course of about an hour at the noise that's happening intermittently on a number of different channels now. On the first job I took it out on, it was a small webcast job. I had all the channels in use, including the line input, multiple outputs, controlled it hardwired with a Chromebook, and it was absolutely flawless. It was really promising, and I was really excited to continue to get it out on further jobs. On the second gig I took it on, it was another small webcast, and I only used a handful of channels, just 3 this time, and again hardwired it with the Chromebook, and had no problems, got through the job, but did notice noise beginning to creep in on the channel, as you can see, and that's been intermittent since that job. It started then and has continued. On the third job, I loaned out the mixer to another sound company who had a little cocktail event as a side part of another bigger event they were doing, and they were going to take a look at this and test it and give me their thoughts. Unfortunately, their Windows-based PC laptop that they were using could not connect to it. After multiple resets and trying all sorts of different things with their firewall and their network settings, this was all hardwired, by the way, just could not get their laptop to connect. I ended up having to go back over to their job site after I dropped it off, gone back to my job, went back across town with my Chromebook, so we could get it connected. And again, that worked just fine. The noise continued on channel 3. It was much worse, much more prevalent at this point, but we just could not get that PC, that Windows-based machine, to connect to this particular Ui-12. On the fourth gig, I loaned it out to a bar band, a band that was playing in a local restaurant that just wanted to take a look at it. They're considering upgrading from an analog mixer to something like this. 8 channels is plenty, and they'd like some compression and effects, so I loaned it to them with the Chromebook. And again, that noise on channel 3 was prevailing, and unfortunately, they experienced noise on a number of other channels. I believe it was 5 and 7. We're picking up radio stations, not just noise, but actual audible radio stations with nothing plugged in, and they were able to get through the job by simply just patching around those channels. They didn't have a large channel count, but unfortunately those channels were useless to them. That's 3 out of 8 channels on a bar band gig can be the difference between miking your drum kit or not. So that was unfortunate to hear about that, and the noise just seems to be getting worse the more the mixer gets used. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stuff about this mixer that I like. The EQ in particular, the way they have it set up with the visualization, the user interface, the RTA included, and the de-esser included in that section is, I think, the best feature Soundcraft's come out with in years. It's a fantastic way to interface with EQ. The EQ sounds good for my money for this price mixer. The mixer overall, the one that I got initially, was well within the tolerance of being quiet enough to use in a live environment. I know some people mentioned they had ones with noisy mic pre's. My one, when I initially got it, was plenty usable for live stuff. Definitely not something I would suggest for recording or high-end work, but for a live noisy background type of event, it was more than acceptable. Overall, the interface on this mixer is really well put together. It's intuitive. I can show somebody the browser-based mixing interface and quickly they're able to understand the layout. It's not an advanced product that takes a lot of learning in that regard, and the price is incredible. It's a great value for the features. So overall, it's a great mixer on paper. Unfortunately, though, somewhere between the design table and the production line, the wheels kind of fell off the trolley here. I tried to give this mixer every benefit of the doubt. I was willing to put aside all of the issues with the built-in wireless networking and just use it as a hardwired connection. That was fine for me. I was willing to overlook the firmware bugs that caused it to crash multiple times, as you can see in the original video. I was willing to put up with the fact that trying to update the firmware was a complete mess. I was happy enough with the sound quality of the mixer. Again, some people say theirs are noisy, but I was comfortable that it was in the range of acceptability for live work. And I was willing to put up with all these issues, mostly because this product said Soundcraft and DBX on it. And I assumed if nothing else, if absolutely nothing else was true, it would be reliable and predictable. When I took it on a job and pulled it out, it would do what it was supposed to do. I was willing to overlook all that other stuff because of the reliability component of buying from a reputable brand. Now, I'm sure I could have had an uncharacteristically bad unit. Sure, that's possible, but you start to dig a little deeper online and you start to look at places like the Facebook UI-16 users group, and you see a pattern of these type of issues. Everybody's having issues with the internal networking. Multiple people talking about how theirs have locked up. People saying locked up during an event, cost me my reputation. You start to look at this stuff, and after only 4 gigs, mine went from working really well to being completely unpredictable. And that's not just an unusually bad unit. That kind of speaks to a bigger underlying issue in these mixers, and just the history and the pattern you see after 2 years on the market. To see these kind of problems is worrying for a company like Soundcraft and a product that's arguably the future and the direction that most manufacturers seem to be going. And after 2 years, it seems like they've maybe forgotten about it. So to say I'm disappointed in this mixer isn't really quite fair. I still think that at the price, the mixer represents incredible value. It's just ridiculous how much stuff is packed into this mixer. But that really only matters when it works. In reality, for me, it was a worthwhile experiment for this cheap of a price to get to try the browser-based mixing and see where they're at with it and see where it's going and how Soundcraft is approaching it. But unfortunately for me, that's where it's going to end. If you're looking to shell out for a cheap mixer that actually needs to work every time you plug it in, if you don't carry backups and spares, if you're in the market for a mixer of this price range, a small bar band or a small AV company that just wants something small and reliable and easy to pull out and make a job happen, then unfortunately and surprisingly, the Soundcraft option is not the right one. What I am disappointed in is what Soundcraft and DBX apparently are willing to put their name on these days. I was looking forward to keeping it. I was looking forward to updating the firmware and continuing to use it and try out the new features. They've got a beta program, and I was excited to be a part of that. I was excited to see where Soundcraft and DBX and Harman were going to take this technology. But for right now, this unit is not reliable enough for me to even do that. Short of experimenting here at home on the test bench, I'm not going to take it out anywhere where I might need to use it in a real event situation anymore, because that kind of noise showing up randomly on channels, whether or not it's unique to this one or if it's a problem that will come back again in the future, I don't want to find out on my time. So I'll continue to work with it here at home and see what happens and pursue through Soundcraft trying to get a replacement and evaluating that one. But as far as taking this out on jobs, like I just can't do it anymore. I suggested in the last video that this was a good purchase for the price, and I still think on paper that is, but I mistakenly made that suggestion based on my years of experience knowing that Soundcraft and DBX and Harman products, if nothing else, represented reliability. People can argue that there's better sounding products. You either like DBX stuff or you choose to look for something else, but DBX EQs and compression, Soundcraft's mixing consoles over the years, for the vast majority of stuff that I've ever been around, has been some of the most reliable equipment I've ever used, going back 15 years. And I mistakenly assumed that they were still pursuing that. And it doesn't seem like that's the case with the UI series. And again, the reason I'm being so critical is this product has been on the market for 2 years. And if you look around for other users' experiences and complaints and issues they're having, these are things that should have been ironed out a long time ago. When Behringer first came to the market with the X32, they were absolutely held to the flames over growing pains and issues in their design and technical issues and firmware issues. And man, they were on the ball. They had user groups set up, they had customer feedback coming in, and they had systems in place to correct these show-stopping issues. So if nothing else, while you dealt with getting to know the product and seeing if it was something you really liked in the long term, you could at least know that when you got to a gig, it would be reliable. At first, they weren't, and people took them to the mat over it. And I don't think Soundcraft and DBX should get a free pass 2 years into production on a model that's still having widespread technical issues that at the end of the day just make it unreliable for use professionally or in any other, I say professionally or not, but the fact of the matter is if you're playing music or performing or doing anything using a public address system in front of an audience, it needs to work regardless of whether or not you're being paid for that engagement or you're doing it for whatever reason. It needs to work. That's the bottom line. That's a mixer. It's the center of your entire sound system. If you can't trust that, I end up with anxiety going to a gig. If this is my only mixer, I'd be so anxious, even if this is a brand new one out of the box. Going to another job with just that would be hard to do. So that's it for this time. Thanks for watching. Be sure to visit the new website. If you've watched the last video about the Poor Man's Qbox project, the community build project, I've set up a forum on the website so we can get all the discussion about that into one place. So far, the response has been awesome. A lot of people have offered their help and their expertise in certain areas in electrical engineering and design and all sorts of different things, which is fantastic. But the discussion is in like 12 different places right now with Facebook messages and Instagram messages and YouTube comments and all sorts of stuff. And it's getting difficult to keep track of everything. So hopefully we can get that all happening on the new forum section on the website. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. And if you want to help me make more of these videos, you can do that by following the affiliate links in the description below, not the ads below, or supporting the channel directly on Patreon. It's patreon.com/DcSoundOp. Thanks again. I'll see you next time.